Hey there, everybody. Thanks for joining me for another one-man review. Today I will be looking at a new book from Glacier Bay by the artist ohuton. This is called Seaside Beta. Glacier Bay is a company that focuses on printing independent underground manga, and they always just have really excellent taste and excellent production and just like, yeah, taste and design as well. Like this is actually pretty cool because, I've been talking about Bound for a long time. It's going to have like a spot gloss in it with no color behind it, and it's really nice for me to see they've got this binary printed on this. It's nice for me to see that effect working. I stole it from Jim Rugg's Aphrodisiac, but it's nice to see more instances of it. It just makes me a little more confident that the idea that I've been spent all these years on is going to work, and it just looks really fucking sexy on the inside here, all this binary and ones and zeros. And that design choice goes really, really well with the content of the book. I guess the artist are themselves a physicist, or has a degree in physics, something like that. Does manga on the side, and that shows up very deeply in the work. The work is very, very interesting in that it's a set of physicists that live within a comic, like they live in the world of the comic. And so what they're doing is they're studying word balloons. Like the story, just the premise of the story takes as a fact that they could see the word balloons, that if you lived in the world of comics, the world balloon would be a physical phenomenon that you encounter. So really fun, like, yeah, kind of weird way of treating comics from the meta perspective that I don't think I've ever seen before. It's always like the creator coming in and interacting, Grant Morrison, Dave Sim type of thing. But this one, yeah, it's strange because it really looks at the characters in the in the world. It's like Flatland, but the bubbles in there. So I love that. And they're going in and they're talking about the Otomo model, which takes into account katakana, and then there's the Tezuka model, the most simple. So it's also looking at the history of how word balloons have been used in Japan, and they're coming up with a theory to none of the models take kanji into account yet. It's a really, really interesting premise, and it's worked out like really thoroughly throughout the book. Or I should say, it's not like a theory worked out thoroughly, but it's integrated really thoroughly into the story in a compelling way. Some of the main characters are, you have the Professor Shirashi here, who's leading this group of people studying. You have Aikiba, who's the main character, and then this strange gal called Leader. I guess she's like the leader of the grad student group or whatever. Those are kind of some of the main characters there that are studying these word balloons. Another thing that goes on in this is really, really strange for manga, is the metaphor for like leveling up to the next dimension, leveling up out of the comic into the real world or whatever, is color. And so there's color, little bits of color throughout. Normally with the manga, you start with the color at the beginning and turn into black and white. And this book actually moves a little bit more towards color the longer it goes. And there's inserts here and there of color along the way, which is kind of funny because me and Brandon and Sean have been talking about doing like a more like manga type of, Brandon especially was talking about doing a more manga type of production with gray tones, and then leading to color in the end. And like shortly after, we were having that conversation about how funny that would be, because that's like the reverse of how manga normally goes. I get this book, and then it's used in the book to narrative purpose as well, which is really, really cool. It's not just like a little trick just to be a trick. Here's another like cartoon comics physics thing that's fun, where the word balloon gets in the way of them playing the badminton, the shuttlecock there. So there's like, and there's this thing here is the black tower, and it's constantly bubbling up the word balloons, and they like float around and attach themselves to people. So there's some weird, interesting ideas about, whether the world's predetermined or not in the book. Some really, really cool effects. I think this is formally like the most playful manga I've ever seen. I'm not saying that manga doesn't have as much formal play in it. I know someone like, not Tezuka, they primed me for Otomo in the book, but Tezuka did a lot of fun formal stuff, but it doesn't seem to be as big a part as the tradition, or at least the stuff that gets translated. It's not as big a part of what gets translated as a lot of the American comics, which tend to be very highly formal, or a lot of people are interested in that. So it's really, really cool to see this kind of formal play throughout the book, and even just like compositional play like this. And then, yeah, the addition of color inside. Then you see another kind of very strange formal thing that I've seen again in American comics. You like Dave Sim and Cerebus has a lot of things where texts are put in like this, but this book has each chapter has this bit of like just prose going along with it, and this prose does relate to the characters in the story eventually, but at first it seems to be this tangential, maybe a mental patient named Ao who's making manga, and he's showing it to a girl, Habana, who's reading it. So you realize that those are probably like the god characters to the characters in the book. They're the one making the manga, and there's like a relationship story between them as well. So really interesting, complex story going on here. Wanted to point out a couple other things I really like in this drawing here. Very, very simple drawing, but there's a reflection in Akiba's glasses that's very beautiful and poetic. This feels like something Brandon would do to me. Just a few simple lines back there in the glasses, but it makes a whole world reflecting. So it's really beautiful drawings and compositions all throughout. You can see there's like a kind of fun style too, where things are a little bit purposely like jaggedy looking, like the ears are very boxy looking and stuff. So it looks a little clunky at first, but the further you go into the book, the more you realize that this is a very sophisticated, like shape-based. I mean, even though it's rendered in line, there's a lot of really cool shape stuff going on in this. And then one thing I wanted to read here that I thought was particularly well written about stories. Stories can be about normal reality too, you know. Moments where a person suddenly seems like the main character are what turn reality into a story, I think. There's a lot of wisdom in that. Nicholas Offerman turned me on to that idea when we were interviewing him about his work. Is he was saying, yeah, I've got all these characters, and it's cool because I can just jump into the points in their life where they are the main character. And then there's plenty of points where you're just the background character to someone else's story. And as me and Tori continue to play with this like mythological narrative-based way of living, trying to narrativize everything in our life, which we both found is very, very helpful psychologically, as well as stressful because you're constantly doing self-work. It's really, really powerful way to look at the world, I think, and that's captured very well in here. That's where you turn reality into a story, and that's when things become more real as well. You know, like once you can attach it to a narrative, it sticks in your life. So a lot of just really, really cool stuff going on in this book, in the art, in the writing. Here's another just example in the art of something really cool where the raindrop is reflecting the word balloon, because again, the word balloon's a physical thing in the world. And then at the end here, we get a lot of play in the word balloons as well, where they're using these little wingding symbols to show some kind of different language. And this is printed on this thing. You can see we're moving more into color, and we're starting to have some like trans-dimensional stuff here where the characters in color stepping out of the panel. I don't want to give it away again, but I think like the premise of the story makes it pretty obvious. This is someone looking to break on through to the other side. They're trying to find that world of color that they've been missing for so long, trying to get out of the world of comics. So I don't think I'm really spoiling much to say that that's where the story heads. But just some of how that's represented is just so fascinating and unique, and just very, very inventive all throughout. I don't know. I think Glacier Bay works with some artists who their stuff hasn't been published in Japanese before. I could be wrong. It would be really interesting. I'm assuming this must have been published in Japanese first because it's referencing how word balloons work with Japanese characters. But this is like really strange for me as a manga. If there is a whole bunch of manga like this out there that's just not being translated, I would love to see more of it. And like, thank goodness we have a place like Glacier Bay that's finding it and publishing it. And there's a bunch of other books that Glacier Bay put out at the same time as this. By the time this video goes up, you've probably seen that I'm starting to limit the amount of videos that I'm making. So out of the batch of really great books that I got, this one was the one that really stood out. There was another one called To the Sea that was a contender for me talking about it as well. But really everything Glacier Bay puts out is phenomenal work. I highly encourage you to go to their website and support them, order as much as possible. They do crowdfunding, and they'll put out like seasons, so they'll put out 3 or 4 books, like the fall lineup, the spring lineup, and I just support those and get them because they're all great. I think it's a really great company that's doing a really great thing for the medium and the industry. So not only do I enjoy their books, but I would encourage everyone to support their mission, because I think they have a really great mission of finding works like this that are exceptional works that just would never get translated by the larger companies. Yeah, so a huge fan of Glacier Bay, huge fan of Seaside Beta, and I hope you all go support Glacier Bay and get yourself a copy of this and their other great works.